Hi, it's Hot Stuff again. I decided to do a video response, my first one, and this is a reply to Jackospacko. You brought up a lot of good points about the kind of friends that you make in high school and what a real friend is, and we all have our high school experiences and memories, and I wanted to share a few of mine. I grew up in a small town, and small towns are horrible. They're like a cult. There's all these unspoken rules that you have to listen to and obey. Growing up, my family had a lot of money. You know, they were pretty well off. Mom, dad, 2 kids, boy and a girl, you know, cat, dog, white picket fence, and that whole everything looks good on the surface, but it isn't, of course, just like everyone in the town, and everyone knows it and ignores it and puts on the facade. But growing up, I was actually quite popular. We had 2 elementary schools, and the one I was in went up to grade 7, and then there was the high school for grade 8 to 12. We didn't have a middle school, too small for that. But in elementary school, you know, I had a lot of friends. I was popular, and they were the popular kids. They were the other kids who had influential parents in the community and were the right kind of people to hang out with. But as I went into high school, things kind of changed because my parents ended up divorcing, and by high school I had kind of a new set of friends. I was still on all right terms with the popular kids. I wasn't a target, but kind of moved over to, I guess they'd be goody-goody friends, because I was kind of a goody-goody. I remember at age 13 walking down to the corner store and that being just the biggest thrill in the world. But in high school, I had some of those, you know, really well-behaved friends, and when my parents divorced, first off, the popular kids wanted nothing to do with me. I was from a broken home, I was damaged goods, I was everything you could think of, I guess. And then my good friends, my real friends, or so I thought, just kind of started moving away from me. They just drifted away because their parents were still a big part of the community, and in this town everyone was talking. You couldn't even go to the Super Value without someone, you know, asking about the divorce or asking about my father. So all of a sudden I wasn't good enough for those people, I guess. And one of the people I was friends with was named Michelle. She was really sweet and really funny, and well, we stopped hanging out because we both pretty much understood the situation, and we just knew that it was kind of time to go our separate ways. At the same time, we were both there for each other. We both knew that we could count on each other in a situation, and we didn't have to pretend that our lives were perfect and that everything was hunky-dory, and we could be realistic with one another. And I'm going to talk about a really bad bullying experience I had. And at that time, me and Michelle were kind of on those weird terms, but I had another male friend. I tended to get along better with men and boys. It was like grade 8. But he was an intellectual like me, and somewhat picked on because of that, not a perfect family. But whereas I had decided that I didn't really want to be part of the popular crowd, on the few occasions they were nice to me because they were on the same soccer team or they needed help with their homework, I just didn't see a lot in them. You know, they were vague and they were shallow, and they didn't have very many interests, and they didn't like to think outside the box, and I just really wasn't interested in that. But my male friend, he really was. He kind of based his life around who liked him. And I mean, I can actually remember incidences of him standing outside, a huddle behind a corner or something, and him just crying to me, crying, why don't these people like me? Why won't these people treat me like a human being? You know, why can't I be one of them? What do they have? What makes them so special? How do I get into that? And, you know, it was really hard to see him get so upset over people who really, they didn't matter that much. He wasn't missing out on a lot, but that was just my opinion, so I was there for him and I helped him. But at the time of this incident, well, what happened is I was in sewing class, and the teacher walked out of the room, and these kids went and took turns hawking a loogie into her orange juice. And, you know, I'm not like a tattletale or anything like that, but I could not stand to watch her come back into the classroom and drink, you know, so I went up to her and I said, you know, you gotta trust me, I don't wanna name names, I don't wanna, you know, bury myself here, but just don't drink the orange juice, you know, and I didn't try to rat anyone out or anything, it was what I had to do, and I did, and someone else ended up telling her who did it, and it got blown all out of proportion, and all of a sudden, the entire school was after me, and I mean, well, not entire, but I was in grade 8, and everyone in grade 8, 9, and 10, apparently, were swarming around at lunch hour looking for me to kick my ass, I guess. I was hiding in the band room. I don't know if they just weren't thorough or if they didn't connect that I might be in there, you know, that big room with all the instruments on the outside. But I had a friend in grade 10 who came to me in the band room. She could find me, but was telling me, you know, I'm so scared for you. I'm 2 years older than you, and yet there are people older than me coming to hurt you, and, you know, what are you gonna do? And you know, I had people's cousins and relatives getting involved and their boyfriends, you know. It wasn't even the girls who would shove me into lockers and stuff. It was the guys who would, like, you know, side check me or whatever. And it was ridiculous. But, you know, in a bully situation, there's not much you can do. But I remember at that time, Michelle and a few others who, you know, we'd kind of become a bit distant, they came back and they stood by my side and they'd walk with me in the hallways, and, you know, every time someone would shout out some comment about how they were going to kick my ass or how I'd be too sore to walk home that day or better be watching, you know, she'd be there throwing things back. And as terrified as I was, it was amazing to see that I had someone care that way about me and willing to put all that stuff aside. And at the same time, that male friend I was talking about somehow managed to get popular at that time. I don't know, they were recruiting new members or trying to piss me off, or, you know, just saw in him all the great things that I'd seen in him. And we weren't romantic at all, just really good friends. But all of a sudden he was popular, and when he saw me in the halls, he'd start throwing out the insults too. And his new friends, would high-five him, and, you know, it'd be all funny, and it hurt, you know. This was someone who a week ago I had stood outside with and hugged him when he was crying over this. And I mean, what if I would have yelled that out in the halls? Hey buddy, I saw you crying last week. You know, like, look at how the popular kids would have reacted to that. But I didn't, because I knew that wasn't right. And I was so hurt that he could do something like that he didn't understand that was wrong. And it's kind of weird to look back on high school like that, because I don't want to judge people based on how they acted in high school. Everyone was stupid, and there's no excuse for bullying, and of course that was wrong, but the one thing I've learned is you can't define yourself by who you were in high school, or by who you knew, or by who you associated with. And I think, you know, I wonder when he looks back on his life if he remembers me at all, or if he realizes what he did, you know, the exact same thing he was doing to me, he had been crying about the week before, about how everyone did it to him, you know. Does he make that connection? Does he regret it? Does he care at all? Or does he look back on it as just a silly prank and doesn't understand? But then I can look back and think of Michelle, who was there in the hardest times, even though her family didn't like me and her other friends didn't like me. She knew it was right. Really, the worst times in your life are going to show you who the best people are, and who's worth keeping around, and who's worth having in your life. Jack, when you look back on high school and the people you knew, yeah, it's bad memories and it was hard to get through, but at the same time, you got through. And you know that you're a good person, and that you have a lot of great qualities, and you're always going to have that, and no matter what anyone else did to you, that's going to be their issue for the rest of their life. You only have to live with you, and trust me, you're worth it. Thanks. This has been Hot Stuff.